This discussion explores some of the customer-specific requirements related to change control. So, Devin, let's say an organization who supplies direct to Ford wants to make a change to an existing part. What are some of the things that the organization should consider?
Well, yeah. So the first thing, they have to understand what Ford says in their customer-specific requirements. And it states, after part approval, the organization shall use the SREA, or Supplier Request for Engineer Approval, process to submit approval request for organization-initiated process changes.
Right. Okay. So that's an example taken directly then from the Ford customer-specific requirements. Niall, what do we think then constitutes a process change?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I think to answer it, we have to sort of understand the customer-specific requirements for part approval. And if we carry on with the Ford example and consider PPAP, in the PPAP reference manual, it gives examples of where the customer should be notified of a proposed change.
Right. So again, if we keep this theme with Ford and Ford requiring PPAP, Devin, can you give some examples then maybe where Ford would require notification of any change by the organization?
Yeah. So in PPAP Section 3, Table 3.1, it gives some examples, which include the change in tooling, maybe a change in manufacturing location, rearranging of tooling or equipment, change of supplier. And these are only some examples. The organization needs to consider the risk and potential impact to the change of the product and compliance to the customer requirements.
Right. Oh, no, that's clear. And now then, if an organization supplying General Motors, give an example maybe of what GM requires in terms of management of change.
Yes. So again, if we refer to the GM customer-specific requirements, they state that all design changes, including those proposed by the organization, shall have written approval by the authorized customer representative or a waiver of such approval prior to production implementation. And again, they, like Ford, refer back to the PPAP manual.
Right. And it's interesting there how they stress that they want to know about changes before the production implementation, not after it.
Yeah.
Devin, what about Volkswagen then? If we take them as an example.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Volkswagen customer-specific requirements state that the Volkswagen Automotive Group requires its suppliers to obtain documented approval or a documented waiver prior to production. See Formal Q, Chapter 4.5, Change Management and Volkswagen Standard VW01155.
Right. So that is where then Volkswagen, in their customer-specific requirements, don't specifically give the standard, but they reference the standard that organizations in the supply chain supplying VW have to meet. Now, finally then, let's consider another IATF member, Renault. What do Renault say about management of change?
Yes, so again, if we go to the Renault Group customer-specific requirements, they state the organization shall inform the relevant contact in Renault Group product engineering and the relevant supplier quality contact about changes being proposed using the formats they define and mandate. And again, this is they have an approach known as ANPQP. But again, the key message is inform the customer and receive authority from the customer before starting to implement any changes.
Okay, thanks, Niall. So I guess from what you've both explained to me, the vehicle makers do not like suppliers making any changes without them first approving. Would you agree with that?
We've had examples that, again, spring to mind. I know a case where, a supplier was, there was a fire within the facility and the supplier was obviously trying to do the right thing and finding an alternative way of producing product. But obviously that brings with it massive risks. And those types of changes, in this case, I guess a layout change, would need customer approval before any parts are submitted to the customer.
And Devin, in reviewing the requirements in IATF 16949, what do we think could be the most applicable requirements about the management of change?
Yeah, so if the product is already in production, the most applicable requirement there would be 8.5.6.1, which is the control of change supplemental. In this requirement, it makes it clear that any customer-specific requirements about change control, particularly informing them before any proposed change, are understood and complied with.
So let's summarize. So for organizations in the automotive supply chain, it's essential that they understand customer-specific requirements about change control. Vehicle makers are particularly focused on suppliers, informing them of planned changes before they are implemented. Whether a new part approval is required will depend upon customer-specific requirements. IATF 16949 has many auditable requirements on change control, with 8561 being the most applicable to products that are already in production. So let's summarize with the key learning points. In auditing change control, customer-specific requirements have to be sampled to ensure the organization process for understanding and implementing customer-specific requirements is effective. Customers want to be informed before changes occur, not after the event. The definition of what constitutes a change will depend on customer-specific requirements.